Welcome to Healing Voices Project, where we share stories of addiction, grief, recovery, and courage. And also from people who work every day in the field of substance abuse who discuss their experiences and advice. I'm Mike Torville, your host. Thank you all for joining us. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Healing Voices Project. I'm Mike Torville, your host. Thanks for coming along and joining us. Today, I have a friend of mine, a guest, Julie Rocco-Jewels. Julie I've known for a few years. And Julie's a wonderful writer, a photographer, a musician, an artist, and also I consider a philosopher and, of course, a Bob Dylan fan, a big one. That's a big thing, as am I. And also one other thing, Julie is a recovering heroin addict, and I've known her now for 3 or 4 years, and she's gone through some pretty rough stuff, but Julie now is 5 months clean, and thank you, Julie, for coming on to share your story.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Good to have you.
Anything I can do to spread the message.
Well, as I mentioned, you're a writer, I think most importantly, and you've written down so much. If you stacked it up, it would be about this high.
Yeah, a few books.
Yeah, it would be. And but what you've gone through for all the years, and well, I'll say you've been 5 months clean. How many years prior? When did you start using heroin?
Oh, been at this for about a decade and a half. So
yeah. Maybe 15 years, 16 maybe.
Yeah, 16 years.
And you've written a lot, and I think, by the way, I'll mention, if you don't mind, your Facebook page, and you tell me what is your Facebook page?
Well, my profile name is Julie Rocco-Jewels, Jewels, and yeah, I think it's under, the link is Writing for My Life, which is my title. Okay. Writing for My Life and Yours. There's
pretty revealing stuff in there. Yeah. Pretty profound writing, and it really hits people. And I know that I've seen a lot of comments, and me too. It made me laugh, it made me cry. You're a photographer, and I love seeing your photography on there as well. And so I think it's worth checking out Julie's Facebook page. I think you'll find it well worthwhile, especially for the listeners, because I think you'll get an insight that you don't get often anywhere else. And I think you'll soon see that and recognize that. Now, if I ask you how it all began, that's overwhelming, because you could say, oh my goodness, it began, that's sort of oversimplifying it. But I suppose in a way, if we got back to when you were a teenager, and I know with your parents and what occurred there, it does give some context, right? Some sense of beginning and how this evolved. Do you want to talk a little bit about when you were a teenager and how things sort of developed and turned into?
Yeah, sure. I didn't start out an addict. My encounter with addiction started very young. It's hard even to start as a teenager, because it started much younger than that. I was born into a family of addicts, a mother and father who were both heroin addicts. And, by the time I reached teenagehood, when I became a teenager, was the year my mother died. I was 14, and she died from septicemia, from infection from using needles, which was what almost killed me twice. My father, however, he was gone most of my life, and he came home when I was around 13, just before my mother died. He came home because he had HIV, and it had turned to AIDS, and so he needed a place to die, basically. And
how old were you when he passed away?
18. So I watched him go through the murderous phases of AIDS for 4 years. And, I didn't get a chance to, make amends with him or to really do what I wanted to now, because I didn't know back then. But, I think I learned a lot about what not to do, except too late.
By then, you were already into it. Now, during your high school years, when your dad was slowly dying, is that when you began using drugs yourself?
That's when I began using. It's hard because I kind of look at my life as in they have like before Christ, after Christ. Well, I'm like before heroin, after heroin. My life is like segued into
the BH version.
Those
and,
two
yeah,
things,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so before heroin, yes, I did. I went to I think what changed my life when it came to drugs was attending my first Grateful Dead show in Madison Square Garden, which is something that I, was told not to do by my grandmother who raised me, but I left her a note and went anyway. And it was the first time I used LSD. And I think from then on, I used drugs as a way to, at the time, I didn't think I was trying to cover pain. I didn't think that's why I was using. I thought I was using to explore consciousness, to seek the big picture, to look for all the things, actually to rebel against everything that, society and my family and tradition and, patriotism and all the things that I wanted to rebel against. And I spent my life running from straight into the ground.
So once you started using, there was no stopping. You just increased.
Yeah, I mean, my life did not become unmanageable until I picked up heroin. LSD, marijuana, I'm not condoning it, but it certainly did not create the hell in my life that heroin and cocaine and other drugs did. And so, I definitely regret not learning how to live with life, how to accept and embrace reality as it is. I do regret that. I regret not being given or just not having the skills to cope and to accept life as it is and not how I wish it would be,
And as I said, you had a lot of talent in your writing. You had a lot of talent as a musician, and you were really had the capacity to do so much more.
I did.
But the heroin in particular took all that away.
Yeah.
When you were in your 20s, is that when you began using heroin?
I was about 27, 28 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, I was late coming into it. And, I think it kind of went either way. I think that I was told a lot growing up, or actually told after I used heroin, how could you do that? You knew, you watched what it did to your parents. How could you do that? But on the other hand, it was like, how could I not do that? I didn't know my mother and father as anything but heroin addicts. I never knew who they were as non-heroin addicts. So it's hard as a child when you grow up knowing, even though there's something wrong with it.
It's all you knew.
It's all you know.
It's all you know.
And so yeah. And it's not. I do want to give my grandmother some credit, my nanny who raised me, Mary Rocco, because she was my saving grace. And I did spend a lot of my addiction running from the values she tried to instill in me, God values and all kinds of values, and again that took me straight into the ground. But my childhood wasn't entirely hell because of her. There was some grace,
some stability.
There was some grace, there was some stability, and but I was a ward of the state until I was 21, and there were, I rebelled. There was definitely some issues growing up, but I don't know. I don't really have any regrets, No,
you had a brother.
I did, yeah.
And he older than you.
4 years.
And what happened to your brother?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. He died. He had sarcoidosis, I think it's called. It's lung disease.
Okay.
And he died very suddenly. Nobody saw it coming. I was in Vermont, living in Vermont, and it was 10:30 at night. My sister-in-law called me, who never calls me, and I had, I had received that death call so many times, because at that point my grandmother that raised me had passed. At that point, everybody was dead except for my paternal grandfather and my daughter. But everybody else had passed. So when my brother passed, it was it was like a seismic shift occurred, and all the pain of our past, all the hardship that we shared, had kind of shifted and fell onto me. And I wasn't in a place in Vermont or in my life where I was ready or prepared to handle it. You know, I was in a traumatic environment that was not conducive to healing or grieving, so I couldn't grieve. Yeah, so that was that definitely drove a lot of my. It was after that I started encountering homelessness. It was after I truly became homeless in my soul. When my brother died, I lost all sense of home after he died, and I'm sorry.
And that led
to homelessness.
to
actual
homelessness. I know, and
yeah.
you know, and you've described that several times. And homelessness, was that in Western Mass?
Well, it was in Western Mass. It was in Hartford, Connecticut. It was in Atlantic City, New Jersey. It was in Kensington. It was last in Kensington and Allegheny, in Philadelphia.
And that's when you were using heavily.
That's where I lost a finger and almost lost my life. Yeah.
In Kensington.
And gave up. I had given up. Yep.
And Kensington is outside Philadelphia, or a section of Philadelphia.
It is it's Kensington, Philadelphia is actually, I think it's like you know, like they have a village of kind of thing, like that's what Kensington is. But then there is Kensington Ave, and Kensington and Allegheny is an intersection.
Okay.
In Kensington,
and hence
Philly.
the section.
And it is an open market for heroin, fentanyl. I mean, I can't emphasize enough how devastated those streets are, you know.
You're 5 months clean. How recently were you in Kensington?
5 months ago.
You want to describe a little bit about what life was like day to day down in Kensington?
Yeah, you know, I told myself I had watched YouTube videos of Kensington for, let me clean it.
Well, actually, which would bring
watched YouTube videos about Kensington literally for like months, maybe even years, before I actually ever visited Kensington.
And why did you visit there? What drew you there?
I told myself I would never go there, ever, because I knew that I would find a home there if I went there. I knew there would be part of me that would find a home in Kensington, because I did get comfortable in the darkness for a while. And so while out there, you know, I was attacked 3 times. That's where I infected my finger, and it was actually not from shooting up. I had burnt it, and the drugs right now are so bad. They are very, very bad. There is, you know, it's not heroin. It's hardly fentanyl at this point. It's xylazam and, you know, meat tenderizers, and it's just really, really bad. Just bad stuff.
Poisonous fillers.
It's so poisonous that even I had a 1-inch hole in my ankle when I went into the hospital for my finger. And it's so bad that had healed, right? That had healed. I had 4 surgeries on my finger, and they had released me back to the streets after being in the hospital for 4 weeks. But I was heavily addicted to the oxycodone and the morphine and Dilaudid that they were giving me. And so I had to go right back to the streets because I was sick. And I had just had a skin graft. I had skin taken from my hip and put on my finger, and it was that week that they sent me back out. I was gone for 1 week before I came back to the hospital to have it amputated. During that week, I was attacked 3 times, and I couldn't protect the work that the surgeon had done on my finger.
Why were you attacked?
Oh, well, this is interesting. So the first time I was attacked, somebody asked me, a man that I had shared, you know, I share a lot when I'm on the streets because I don't like to be alone as a single woman. And so if I have money, I will share drugs with homeless people for many reasons, but mostly because I don't want to be alone on the streets. And so I had shared a lot with this one particular man, and he asked me for a cigarette, and I offered him half of mine. And so he threw me up against a brick wall. Half wasn't enough. And that's how we become on the streets. We become savage. We lose our humanity out there. And so that was the first time. The second time was a girl who, it was very interesting. We were standing in line to get into a shelter, a homeless shelter. I had been out all night long, and I was trying to get in. My hand was freezing. My finger was so cold. And I coughed. I had to cough, and I knew for some reason I knew something about her that if I had coughed near her, she was going to get bitchy. I kind of knew that, and so I turned and I coughed into my elbow like this. Lo and behold, she just bitches at me for coughing, and so I literally, and excuse my language, I'm sorry, but I was so upset because I just looked at her and I said, oh my God, I knew you would do that. Like, I knew you would do that. And so she attacked me. She actually said to me, you're probably the reason why your mother killed herself. She had overheard me telling somebody about my mother, and she had said that to me, and then she attacked me. And the third time somebody was trying to steal my phone, and I had to protect it. My lifeline. So. Yeah.
And I know your phone is your lifeline.
I think I've written at least 2 novels on that phone. So.
And all that you went through when you went, that was in February. Now it's cold. You're homeless. You found shelter somehow. You ate somehow. But you survived. And even prior to that, I know you had bounced around a little bit. And I might get the chronology of this wrong. But I know you were in Western Mass. And you went to Ohio? Did you go to Ohio?
No. I left Western Mass on Valentine's Day of February 21.
Okay.
I first drove to Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I stayed there for about 8 days, and I kicked heroin there temporarily. And then I left there at like 3:30 in the morning. I just I gotta go, and I jumped in my car and I started driving to Alabama.
Alabama.
Yeah.
What drew you to Alabama?
Actually, that wasn't where I was heading. That's where I ended up.
Oh.
that wasn't where I was heading. I was heading to just south. I left Massachusetts in a pretty traumatic state. I was enduring a breakup, and I was in addiction, and I was just in a really bad place. I actually have no memory of leaving Massachusetts. And that's not even funny, because the people that only God saved me from killing when I was driving that way.
Thinking back, you say, how in the world did I even make it? Yeah,
Unbelievable. Like, I literally believe that an angel picked me up by my head like a little, toy, and then just plopped me down in another state, because I have no memory of driving there. So, it's just...
That's not the only
stuff that we do, that we would never do sober, and so I stopped in Philly, I stopped in D.C., I stopped in North Carolina, I stopped then I in all these places, Tennessee, Alabama, back to Tennessee. I have a warrant in Tennessee for getting pulled over for 2 grams of marijuana. I'll be kind, and so, and then I ended up back in Massachusetts, and that lasted about 2 months maybe. Tried to get clean. I couldn't get clean. I was in so much pain. And during those months that I was traveling south, by the way, I had tried to commit suicide 4 times. Solid attempts to commit suicide. Like a whole bottle of Klonopin the first time. I had my doctor mail me the second bottle, and I took that one too. And then I bought very strong fentanyl in Tennessee. That was actually when I got pulled over by those cops. They didn't find that. They just found the 2 grams of pot. Thank you. And
maybe been better off if they found it.
Maybe, but not in Tennessee. I don't think so.
Okay.
Not based on how they're treating me
still
for the
be
THC.
There. Yeah.
So but I think that I did end up, when I got pulled over that night, I went to the hotel room. I left them and I went to the hotel room, and I said, this is really good stuff. I'm going to just do a little line. I'm going to enjoy it. And then when I'm done, I'm going to do the rest. And I'm going to end the suffering once and for all. So I did that little bit, and I woke up 10 hours later, and the rest was gone. It was gone. To this day, I don't know if I woke up in my sleep and did it all. I don't have any memory of that, but it was gone. And if it was there, I can almost guarantee I would not be sitting here right now, because I had every intent to die on that trip. And by the grace of God alone, I didn't.
Well, I know you've really narrowly escaped death a multitude of times.
I actually died when I got back from that trip by accident. In my back seat, I died.
What happened?
I had used fentanyl that I had gotten in Hartford, and didn't know it was so strong. And I wasn't at the time using syringes, and I decided to that night. I decided to use a syringe, and if you inject, it's a lot more potent than if you sniff or do it any other way. So I injected, and I woke up in complete, absolute withdrawal to a stranger sitting in my front seat. Had found the Narcan in my glove box. He could have stolen everything. He was an addict. He could have stolen my car. I was living in my car. I lived in my car for months, for a long time. But it could have turned out very differently, and he saved my life.
I think you're here for a reason.
I like to think so.
I don't mean here alive and survive and back where your home is and everything else.
Oh, I'm so happy to be home.
Me too. Yeah. You've got a lot to offer people, in more ways than one.
Thank you.
And as you go through this, and I know you've gone through withdrawal many times too, and I know for a lot of people, and you described again in your writing, what's it like going through the withdrawal? Because you've done that many times, and the days that follow, and then perhaps what takes you out of that and puts you back in. So I mean, when you stopped using, even throughout the year or years before, after 16 years, you've had a lot of practice at.
Withdrawal is absolutely the driving force, I think, behind every heroin addict's fears of getting clean. It's always.
Well, I mean, and not to interrupt you,
yes, okay.
Fears of getting clean. Now, what are you afraid of about getting clean? What fear about getting clean? What does that mean to people?
I used to think it was very cliche when people said, well, heroin was like our best friend, and so we grieve when we lose the drug. We grieve. But it's not so cliche. It's actually very true. I could count on heroin. I could count on those drugs. I thought, right? It began that way. It was an illusion. It was a lie wrapped in a pretty bow, but it was still a lie. So I just, I had so much fear about being without it because I erroneously believed that it was helping with my pain, even though I knew that it was creating more pain. Like, I did know that.
But you can't rationalize that.
You can't, we know. Like, we do know. We know. It's not like we don't know. There literally, I can only put it this way. There is a very, very, very thin line in that, or like that moment where an addict either pulls themselves out of addiction, active addiction, or they are yanked out, either by death, a police officer,
being found somewhere in the
being committed to a hospital, whatever. But it is such a line, because you really, when you're in active addiction, you're really only going in one direction, and that is jails, institutions, or death. So to be rescued from that, to be pulled out of that, and I mean neither in death or in life, it's a very fine line. And the fact it is, when they say it's a miracle, it's a miracle. It's an absolute miracle when we can escape the throes of active addiction. It truly is. And I think anybody who has seen a loved one go through it or has gone through it themselves can relate and identify with that. It's a really extraordinary thing. I watch other people do it, and I mean, and that's where I really feel it too, is not when they say I have 4 years clean or 11 years clean, when they say I have 1 day clean. I have 1 day clean because I remember that day, Sorry. I didn't think I'd get emotional.
Somehow I knew it.
Me, feelings.
I've gotten to know you. But that's, you speak from the heart, and I think that's what's most meaningful to people, from experience, from the heart, and you mean what you say. And I think when you talk about your withdrawal, and the day 1, and then day 2, and then each day after becomes that much more difficult. And what you've experienced, you see the changes over the few days. You want to describe what it typically is like?
So when you're addicted to opiates of any kind, once you've used it, it really only takes 3 days to get hooked, to get physically dependent on an opiate. It takes 3 days. Use it for 3 days in a row. Consider yourself dependent on opiates. You're going to feel it when you stop taking it after 3 days. So when you've been taking it for a month, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, those withdrawals get worse and worse and worse. I'll tell you, my last withdrawal was a world away from my very first one. It was a very different experience because my first one, I could bear it, I can't bear it anymore. My body has been beat up, bruised, and it's just injured. It can't handle any more detoxes. And I'll tell you, to explain what it happens, though, it's like the flu, but times, magnified by like a million, because you get the sweats, you get the cold sweats and the hot chills. That's what we call it. It's kind of like you're sweating, but you're freezing, and but it's different than the flu. The most difference, though, between the flu and dope sickness is the flu does not come with a type of anxiety and agony and shame that heroin withdrawal comes from, or opiate withdrawal at all. When I'm withdrawing, the very first thing that starts to creep in, the first symptom is anxiety and depression. Instant anxiety and depression. It's instant. You already know you're not getting more. Your brain starts working. You're aware of it. You're preparing for the sickness, and as you prepare for it, you make it worse because.
And every hour.
It literally takes, and it depends on the opiate too, because heroin, within 3 to 4 days, you can start feeling normal. Fentanyl, it can take anywhere from 7, 10, 2 weeks to feel normal. So every opiate has a different length of time when it comes to withdrawal. Methadone, you cannot feel normal for months coming off of methadone. I feel for anybody coming off of methadone and Suboxone for that matter. So it's very different depending on the drug, depending on the tolerance, depending on the person.
And the length of time you did it.
And the length of time that you did it during that particular time, and also over the course of your life. How long have you been using it? So my having used it, my doctor immediately in February when I went to see my addiction doctor, she said to me, "You have been using opiates for so long, I don't think your brain knows how to be happy anymore without it. Not yet. So you're going to need some help." And so this is why maintenance and harm reduction comes in. And I know a lot of people have things against those, they say we're still getting high and this and that. I'm not in recovery from marijuana or LSD or Suboxone or methadone. I'm in recovery from active addiction. I'm in recovery from being on the road to hell. That's what I'm in recovery from. I'm not in active addiction anymore, It doesn't matter if a person is on maintenance or harm reduction. If they're not in active addiction, to me, they're in recovery. They're clean. They're doing it right. They're staying alive. The trick is that you have to keep us alive until we want to stay alive, And so that's what harm reduction does. It allows us to stay alive until we want to.
You said that because until we want to stay alive, because often you don't.
Exactly.
And you've said it already.
Oh,
You've said, and that is the major difference. Now, what do you think the difference was this past February, where you did not go back?
Yeah.
Was there a different, something that made it work this time?
Yeah. God. God.
Where God was absent before.
Yeah, no, I spent my life running from God. I never, I didn't want anything to do with God. I was an atheist or an agnostic. I bounced between the two, Buddhist, atheist, agnostic. I still love Buddhism. I'll always love Buddhism and practice meditation. But God has come into my life because I'm a walking miracle, and I could never have done this without God, without the force of something far more powerful than me or any other human being.
That is very important, and I think that so many people, and we've had people on the show, whether it's programs, Celebrate Recovery, among many others, that has been the difference in people's lives. And what we've said many times, in the path to recovery, there isn't a perfect recipe. Whatever works, and sometimes we will dismiss it and then find that works. And if it works, then that's the right one. And all these years, 16 years now, I think, and talking with you, and you sound great.
Thank you.
You sound happier than I've heard you many times. And so this is a wonderful thing. And I know I've forgotten how many years we've got, but I got to know you through your writing and through a mutual friend, Pam, and Pam I've known since we were kids.
Love
So
Pam.
yeah, me too. So we got together to talk about your writing and everything, and I know we started talking about the book I was writing and how we sort of disconnected a little bit, and I know that's when you were traveling south and all that. But I know, and I'll recall a night, and I'll just bring this up because I understood somewhat how some family members, people you care about, people you love, and who are in addiction, and they go missing, and you don't know what to do. You and I, anyway, we were speaking about something, and I forgot what it was. And I said, "Where are you?" And you said, "I'm in a hotel." I said, "In a hotel? What are you doing in a hotel?" "Well, I'm just here. I'm going to be using in a little bit." I said, "What do you mean you're going to be?" And it was a text. "What do you mean you're going to be using in a little bit? Why? What? Where are you?" You didn't say where you were. I don't blame you. But and I was like, "Well, what am I supposed to do about this?"
Yeah.
And you said, "Yeah, no, I'm going to be using in about an hour. I have something to do, but then I'm done for the night."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, wait, where are you? What?" And you just stopped answering.
Yeah.
And the next day I said, "How are you? Where are you?" No answer. 4 days went by.
No.
I didn't hear from you.
Wow.
And,
That sounds typical. I'm sorry.
Well, no. I'm bringing this up as a
No, it's okay.
but I'm bringing it up as a matter of relating to parents and people that care about families and say the anxiety and the stress of saying what happened and not knowing. Yeah. And you say, well, what are we supposed to do? This person's not answering, gone. Yeah. And I thought, my goodness, this is how people feel. And there was nothing to be done.
Yeah.
And 4 days later, you appeared. You're like, hi, like nothing happened. I'm like, I wanted to kill you.
It is so hard to be a loved one of an addict. Yeah,
right.
It's so hard. I can totally identify with that. On both sides, and I can't. I am very. I have so much compassion for the people who loved me and love me, who had to watch me go through that, who had to endure going through that. All I can say to people who love an addict is don't give up. Keep yourself safe, but don't give up. Don't enable, don't enable, don't enable, but don't hate on them either. I think that zero tolerance does not work anymore. I'm not sure it ever did. Tough love, that kind of thing. I think that, again, protect yourself. I understand that I was a person that people needed to protect themselves from. I understand that. I don't resent anybody for that. Yeah, I don't even resent people who still feel the need that they need to protect themselves from me. So, I understand that, but don't give up because, I was told I'd be dead by 21 by my algebra teacher in high school, and maybe a few others believe that too, no doubt. But and I can't be cocky and say that things couldn't change tomorrow, but I have a lot of hope today, and I feel really good about where I am. I'm tired of turning my back on God. I don't think I can do that again, and I don't think I have another recovery in me. I think this is it. This is the one. This is where I'm at.
This has got to stick. Yeah.
And I want to be the proof to other people who love addicts that we can do this. We can recover, and we do recover, and there is hope.
And you said something that it's brought up here a lot. How much the deaths from fentanyl are rising, and in 2021 it exceeded 100,000 people, and in the year before it was 90-something thousand, and then it's 90, just going up 10-15% every year, and I always think it's 100,000 people, but the casualties are beyond that.
Yeah.
It's the mothers and the fathers and the friends and the
absolutely.
sisters and brothers, and you multiply that by hundreds, if not thousands, millions of people who are affected by one by someone's death. And I think that it just goes beyond so much about how lives are devastated, torn apart. And you're right. It's you being, look at your current family, your current relationships and friends who were all like behind you and say, we're so glad you're here. And you would have affected every one of them had you not made it out. And I know too, the 21 years since you were 21, because you and I talked, and I know 42 was an age that you thought.
I did not think I would surpass the age my family was when they died. Yeah, no, my brother was 42, my father was 42 when he died, and my mother was 34 when she died. So yeah, no, I definitely, the road that I was paving, I didn't think was going to lead past 42, but here I am at 45. So. Another 40 to go. But as far as, loving an addict, like I do just want to throw this in there. We need to give the addict a world worth getting clean for, So while we're using, we need to know that there's a world out there that's worth going through that suffering that we are going to have to endure to get clean. And when we get clean, we don't just endure it and then we're done with it. We now have to face the pain that we have been trying to numb for however long we've been out there. So it's so crucial to have people in our lives that still love us, even if they do have to protect themselves from us. We need to know we're still loved. We need to know that there's somebody, we need a world worth getting clean for, a world worth fighting for. So, and I have that. I'm blessed to have that, to have it from God now, to have it from people who love me, You have
a lot of people who love you, and I think a lot of people who are inspired by you.
Thank you, yeah.
And more to come. I do believe that strongly, and it's and I think what you've got a lot of, I don't want to say talents, but interests, whether it's photography, music, writing, back to that. So I'll just ask you, nature too. Well, yeah. And I'll recommend visiting Julie's Facebook page to get a glimpse of your photography and your writing. And but what are your, I don't even have talked about it, but I'll just ask your plans for the near future about writing. What do you got in mind?
Oh my goodness, writing has been such a hard topic for me for so many years until now, because for the decade and a half that I was using, I didn't write. I didn't write for 15 years, other than when I finished my bachelor's degree, I did, which was also a miracle that I ever did that, but I did write for that. But other than that, I never wrote. I forgot that I was a writer, forgot completely. And so now that I've come back into it, it has taken me about 4 years of coming back into it to finally be able to stand up to the people who have a hard time seeing writing as an occupation. You know what I mean? To stand up and say, no, I am a writer. That is who I am. It's who I am by nature. It's who I am. It is the gift that I was given to also, because I thought, music and dance growing up as a teenager and stuff, I knew I could write in 8th grade, but I didn't pursue writing until now. Back then I pursued music and dance, and I was very good at both, but my addiction kind of squandered that. And so I could never go back to being good at dancing or music because it takes years of practice to be a pro at that, but writing. See, I was an artist by nature, and so I was not going to be steered away from some kind of art. Yeah. And so since I can't dance or play music professionally, I'm going to write. So,
well, I get it, because I was a hockey player.
Yeah.
I'm 63, and I don't think I'm going back to playing hockey.
Exactly, yeah, you got it.
So writing is a little easier.
It is. And then, I think that it's so nice to engage with you, because I truly believe that us writers are a breed of our own, and it's nice to relate to writers, because I feel alone sometimes. So.
Well, you're not alone.
And I know I can be
Yeah.
annoying because it's like I'm late for everything. I gotta just finish this one paragraph before I lose it.
And sometimes you obsess over certain words. That's not the right word.
So bad, yeah.
I know. And and if you don't mind, I have a little sample of your writing. It's just a little bit.
For it,
And
yeah.
I mean, I have pages here, but I'm not going to.
Yeah. Do you want me to read it? Do you want to read it?
Well, I was going to read a section of it because I think
Okay.
there was something here that I thought was, a little bit of this to wherever. And then I think this, we're talking about the kidnapper. And I think that was, if you want to talk, so I want to read a little bit of that because I
Okay,
think this is a nice little sampling of what you have explained that I think a lot of people never could articulate, but you do.
Okay. Let's see. I wrote, addiction is the ultimate oppressor. It is the oppressor of freedom, of balance, of relationships, of hobbies, of peace, of good work ethic, of healthy parenting, of motivation, of sanity, of purpose, and the list goes on and on and on. Addiction is the oppressor of laughter, love, truth, and living. It steals our will to exist. It sabotages our pursuit of joy, purpose, and happiness. Yet addiction is the only prison where the prisoner holds the key to their own liberation. I'm sure some of you will agree, but I think we jail ourselves in while amidst active addiction. We are the prisoners, the cages, and the guards. We, at the most powerless and helpless points in our lives, are actually the ones who possess all the power and authority to release ourselves from bondage. Yet we have learned that we cannot let go if we don't let God. Something stronger than our egos needs to take the place of our own will out there, because our will is what got us there. So it absolutely takes a power greater than ourselves to be liberated from the most agonizing and paralyzing captivity a person could endure. With the exception of the last 3 paragraphs I just wrote this morning, this piece... is that what I was supposed to read, Mike?
No, it's all right. I'm just...
I missed this right here. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. I have come to experience addiction as the only kidnapping where the victim is also the predator. And I am so proud to say that my ransom has been paid. It has been paid by my Creator. It has been paid with a decade of my existence. This is my time to live. This is where I choose life for the next 5 months and every 24 hours that passes after that. One day at a time, 1 hour at a time, one moment at a time. That is how I arrived here, and that is how I will reach my destination of purpose, opportunity, and truth. I'm on my way, and I'm on my way with clarity and willingness. This is a fight for my life, and through it all, it is my hope to light the way for those who take this walk with me, for those who can't see their own light through the darkness. And I am totally and completely honored to do so.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well written. And I think that's
Totally
why I printed that, because I thought that sums it up quite well.
Yeah.
And I think that was, again, volumes. And we were talking about your plans, and we got off track a little bit.
That's right.
But your plans, we've talked about actually writing a book.
Oh, I really do feel ready. I feel ready for the first time in my life. Like I'm ready to actually approach it. You know what I mean? Like it's not finished yet, but I'm ready to approach it.
It's just beginning. What do you mean not finished
Exactly.
yet?
That's what I'm saying. In my head, it's not finished yet.
Yeah. And I'd love to engage with you over time as we
Absolutely,
go through this.
Yeah,
and
you'll be a big help through this process, no doubt.
I think that's going to be. Now, when I wrote 2 years ago now, Voices from the Fallen, I knew you and I discussed that, and there's chapters. Well, but I think in a way, maybe that evolved to be the right way, because you have different experiences. And during the writing of that is when I know when you're off on your own and finding your way south and then back north again. And then, but you have more than a 12-page chapter.
Yeah.
And I think with all the years and the family and the anxiety and all the things that you've gone through, this is your time to put something together, and it's going to be wonderful. I say wonderful in the way that it's going to help people. Yeah. And that's, I think, your intent.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's all that I want. I really can't take a lot of credit for for what I'm doing right now. I can't, I could never do this on my own. This is definitely credit to God, to loved ones, to friends, to you, to Savita Health, to, all kinds of people. Yeah. Did I just go off track again?
No, not at
What did you say?
You're never off track, because we always, and I know we're getting towards the time, and we could talk for hours and hours and hours.
We could.
But I think one of the things I'm thinking about, maybe
Yeah.
having you back to talk more, because I know you've got a lot to say and a lot of useful information. One of the things we didn't get to talk about, but I'd like to, if you're willing to, because what brought you into different rehab or recovery centers, and what it was like, and what you felt worked, and these types of things. I think it would be useful to people. We didn't get to talk much about that, but you could open up.
It's interesting that you asked that, because I was just telling somebody about my experience going to a very fancy rehab detox. I was offered about $110,000 scholarship to a rehab in New Jersey. That's how I ended up in Atlantic City, and it was beautiful. I did 2 weeks. I finished the detox. I completed it. I kicked Suboxone and Klonopin and all. I did great. It was a good detox. There was massages. Everything was organic. Leather recliners. Wow. I mean, I can't. Fresh food all the time. Queen size beds with comforters. Okay, so
this was in New Jersey.
It was luxurious. It was in Atlantic City, and not only that, but when I left the detox, I was brought to a mansion on the Jersey Shore, a multi-million-dollar mansion to live. And after a week of that, I decided to leave and go live in my car on the dirty parking lots of Atlantic City. So that's what I decided instead of the wonderful mansion on the Jersey Shore. And that is how we are as addicts. It's the insanity. It is the insanity. But I think that what I want to say about that is that I have mostly done state hospitals for detox and rehabs. And so what I learned from this experience is that it doesn't matter where you go. It really doesn't. You can go someplace that is, massages every day, horseback riding, all this. You can go to the state hospital, with the filthy floors and the cockroaches. Like, you either want it or you don't. You either are going to, I can't, and I can only say that because I've been now to the fancy detox, and it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. The multi-million-dollar mansion wasn't enough.
The horseback riding didn't make the difference.
I did try the horseback riding. I did it. I got on a horse and rode, but it didn't take me to recovery, So it wasn't enough. I really had to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so I'm grateful for every detox and rehab that has ever given me a bed. I am grateful to the gross state hospitals, all the way to Enlightened Solutions, for accepting me. And, I'm thankful. And they're all, you're going to have your pros and cons for every one of them. You're going to have people who have bad intentions, and you're going to have people who are there truly altruistically wanting to help. And you just have to surround yourself with good company. Have good judgment, which we don't usually have when we're entering into recovery from active addiction. But, I don't know. You just have to want it. I really can't say enough that it doesn't really matter where you go, It's in here.
Yeah.
It's in here.
It's all with you, yeah.
It really is. It starts right there. Yeah.
Well, we will talk more about that.
Yeah. I have a lot of information. As far as resources go, I'd love to help with that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I know we could talk.
We could.
Over and over. Less, we'll have to plan an extended version of this. But anyway, we'll keep going. And it was great having you. Thank you so much for coming. It's so appreciated. And we'll be talking soon. And for everybody listening, please tune again, share it with people.
Thank you.
I think there's a lot to learn. And goodbye, and see you soon. Thank you.
Be well. Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.